All right, hey, welcome to this video. I'm going to try to answer your question. We'll see if we can get it sorted out. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. As I'm sure you're well aware, I'm just a student in the class, so I don't guarantee that any of my answers will be correct or that they will help you get a good grade on your assignment. But feel free to watch the video anyway, and hopefully it at least has some useful information about Unity, if not about how to get a good grade on the next assignment. Um, so yeah, let's just pretty much get into it. It's been a while since I've done this assignment. I did it more than 2 weeks ago, so I'm a little bit unfamiliar with myself, and it is faster for me to just kind of talk off the top of my head to make this video. So yeah, bear with me as we kind of figure out what's going on, and I'll show you the way I have everything set up. And again, it's been a couple of weeks since I looked through the textbook and I didn't review it before I started trying to make this video, so I'm not sure if I did things differently than the textbook or not. I have used Unity before, so I'm pretty familiar with it, so I may have done things my own way. Hopefully that doesn't create any problems, but for the most part, right, I followed the textbook as precisely as I could. So, all right, so we've got our tank here, and what I was talking about in my post was the hierarchy. We don't need any of this stuff. All we care about is the tank. Of the tank game object, right? Over here in the hierarchy, in the view over here, we have all of our game objects, right? We've got the tank battle city game object, we've got the canvas game object, we've got the tank game object. And then the tank game object has these child objects, right? It's got the chassis, the left tread, the right tread, the left tread case, the right tread case. Then we get into the stuff I was talking about. It's got a turret pivot, and as a child of the turret pivot, you have the main camera and the Type 1 turret. Then you also have the cannon pivot as a child of the turret pivot. And then as a child of the turret pivot, you have the cannon. And then once you get into setting up the fire system, you have as a child of the cannon the muzzle point. I don't think, like I said, can't really remember, but I don't think you need the muzzle point just for the rotating script. I think you, in the aiming script, I think you just need it for the firing script. But either way, that's where I have it attached. And it does work all the way it's supposed to, but I'm not going to be showing you all that, just what you asked about. So then on our tank game object, all the way back up at the top of our, whatever, tank, the root game object is called the tank. That's where we have all of our scripts attached. If you look over here in the inspector, we've got our turret controls, we've got our score counter, we've got our chassis controls, and we've got our fire controls. I've got the fire controls turned off right now because, like I said, I wasn't technically part of your question, so we're not using it. I don't think any of these other game objects, except for the main camera, have any important components attached. Pretty much just, they all have a transform, which is just, all game objects have a transform. It just says, where does it exist in the world? But I don't think any of the other scripts should be attached to anything else. I think the way the textbook had it set up, all of your scripts should be attached to the tank. And then if you have it set up the way that the textbook said to do it, you should see pretty much what I have here. You should have a transform, you should have a character controller, turret controls, score counter is not important for what we're doing, chassis controls, and fire controls. So potentially something with your character controller could be off, like if you accidentally changed one of these values or it didn't get set right. That could be a problem, but probably not. Probably all we really need to look at is our hierarchy set up this way, right? Is the turret pivot a child of the tank, and is the cannon pivot a child of the turret pivot? And again, the way you can change that, I'm going to show you over here in the tank battle city, is is just by dragging and dropping. It's stupidly easy, right? So I've got the tank Battle City here, and right now, all these things are children of the tank Battle City. Well, I can create a new game object, just for the sake of example, called, and then rename it Building 1, right? Abbreviated Building 1. And then I can just drag and drop, right? I can take the building roof, I can take the building wall, and I can take the other building walls and make them all now a child of this building 1 here. So now they're in the drop down. I could change it, and I could make the wall a child of walls, right? And do that. And then basically the kind of generic thing you might do with this by having them set up as children. Now, instead of having to click on each one of these, I can make some changes just by changing the root thing here. The change I can make easily is just enable it and disable it, right? Now, because they're children, I can disable them all or enable them all with just this one setting. So yeah, make sure that your tank is set up that way, that the turret pivot is a child of the tank, cannon pivot's child of turret pivot, and your cannon is a child of the turret pivot. Might have said it wrong. It's a little confusing, but that's how it should be. And you can refer to the textbook if any of that doesn't make sense, or if it doesn't sound like what the textbook said to do, because, yeah, as already stated. Okay, so then we go back to our tank and we look at our scripts. So make sure that your hierarchy is set up like that. Then make sure that you have your components on here. Then we can change these values here if some of those are wrong. So the turret pivot and the cannon pivot should be the turret pivot and the cannon pivot respectively, right? There's more than one way to set it, but basically if they say none like that, you can just click on the tank, then click on the turret pivot, drag and drop to turret pivot, cannon pivot, drag and drop to cannon pivot. Same thing if you need to change any of the chassis controls. You can just drag and drop for the most part. Then we have our other values here. I forget already what I had mine set to. Let me see if it'll... Nope. Yeah, I can't remember. So we will just try like a really huge number, like 100. And we'll double this just for good measure as well. And so those, again, turret speed and cannon speed. Turret speed is, I believe, how quick it rotates here. And the red just means that I'm in play mode instead of test mode. That's a pretty handy setting that you can do. So yeah, now I'm in play mode, right? Turret speed, I'm going to set that to 1,000. I'm going to try that. All right, see, now it's super fast. Or if it's set to the default of 1 or 0, then it'll be stupidly slow. So 100 is not bad, depending on the feel that you're looking for. 100's maybe faster than a real tank might be, maybe not. Never been in a real tank. And cannon speed, I think, is how fast your cannon goes up and down. Looks like it. Yeah. And, you know, pick a value for that. Whatever feels good to you. 10 is super slow, 1,000 super fast, etc. Low cannon limit and high cannon limit are what determine the maximum of, I think, like I said, been a while, how far up and down it can go. So that's what those are. Move speed is move speed, rotate speed is rotate speed, tread scale speed, that's the bonus thing for extra credit. And yeah, you can drag and drop those, right tread and left tread, if that's something you need to do. That's pretty much the whole thing. double check all those. Hopefully this made sense and I didn't run too fast and be too rambly. Let me pull up the scripts just so that you can see what mine are, and verify that, mine work. The only other thing to keep in mind that might be different from me to you is I made the mistake of building this in 5.5 instead of the version we were supposed to use. Probably that shouldn't make a difference for anything related to this video, but it might in theory. So yeah. The other thing I was going to mention is if you change these values here to try to change your cannon speed and your turret speed after you've already created the tank object, it's not going to change it, right? So you see over here, our turret speed is 200. Well, in the script, our turret speed is still 45, and we can change that to whatever we want. We can change that to 0. We can save the script, and we can restart, and our turret speed got changed to what it was when I clicked play before. But it's definitely not 0, right? It's 100, and, so if I create a new turret control script, it will be 0. But because this one's already attached to a game object, you have to change these values in here in the inspector because they are public variables. If they weren't public variables, then you wouldn't, but because they're public, that's how it works. The start and update functions are just in Unity. We're not using those. Turret rotate, I believe this is exactly what you had, and like I said in the other comment, I might have been a little bit rude. It wasn't on purpose if I was, but you can change the name of this variable to whatever you want. It can be literally moon pants. I don't recommend doing this, but you can, right? You can change the name of it to moon pants, and so long as you, wow, sorry for my unusual sense of humor. It must be too late to be making a video right now. But moon pants is what I picked, so who cares, I guess, at this point. Yeah, so, right, you can change it, and so long as you change both, right, so long as the argument variable is the same as this variable here, they both say the same thing, it'll still work, right? Our turret, sorry, that's spinning, our turret still rotates the way it's supposed to based off of the turret speed variable, right? It's 10, it's super slow. If it's 500, it's really, really fast, right? Doesn't matter what you call it. It should be, you should call it something that makes sense, right? So that you can remember and read your own code. But if, doesn't matter. Even, yeah. But I think that's it, right? That's that script. And that was pretty much your whole question. The other script, chassis controls, I'll put this up here on the screen for just a second, but that shouldn't be where your problem is. So that's pretty much it. You can keep on watching or stop watching at this point. Hopefully your answer was in there and you can get it working pretty easily. What I'm going to try to do now is break it in the same way you broke yours, and I may or may not be successful. So yeah, if you want to see me messing around with some more stuff for another couple of minutes, feel free to stay on, but really this is the end of the answer to your question as best as I can answer it. Okay, so I had wondered what would happen if one of these was not set. Which one? I disabled the turret pivot? Yeah, so if there's no cannon pivot at all, then that doesn't work. If there's no turret pivot at all, then again, same thing, those don't work. What if they're reversed? What if I put the turret pivot as the cannon pivot and the cannon pivot as the turret pivot? That definitely creates an amusing behavior, for sure. Video games, right? How much fun is that? but not the problem that you described. So what if I tried the turret pivot in both? I know what that will do now that I've changed it, right? But that's not the problem. If I make the cannon pivot not a child just of the tank, and not of the turret pivot, that makes it so that my turret spins independently of my cannon, which also makes sense, but still not the problem you were having. I was going to try adding maybe like a turret controls script to the turret. And again, all this works in real time. I don't have to recompile it so long as I'm not changing the scripts. If I'm only changing the game components, would, in theory, just double the speed that it rotates, or at least add it together. No, actually, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you figure it out. That's really all I can think to try to break it the same way you broke yours. You can post more screenshots of your components or something if you think that would be helpful, but I don't know. Computers are buggy, and hardware and software are also problems, so it might just be your computer was full on memory and something got corrupted, so you may have to just retry it in another system. Especially, that would be the case if the computer that you were doing the assignment on didn't meet the minimum system requirements for Unity. That could create weird bugs like objects floating in the air when they're not supposed to be. Other than that, nothing comes to mind. If I come up with any other ideas, I'll let you know. But good luck and let me know how it turns out. Thanks for sticking around through this bit if you did. And if anyone else has any other questions they would like me to make a video reply to, please ask, because I'm happy to do it. And posting in the forums is mandatory for course credit, so, there's that too. Thanks a lot, and have a good night.